Good evening, everyone. I request you all to please take your seats. We are soon to start this session. I request Chairman of Ahmedabad branch, Sunil Sanghvi sir, and Neerav Agrawal, Vice Chairman of Ahmedabad branch, to escort Saurabh Soparkar sir to the dais. A big round of applause for him. I request all the members to rise up for the ICI motto.
य एष सुप्तेषु जाग्रति य एष सुप्तेषु जाग्रति कामं 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 कामुषो पुरुषो निर्मिमाणः तदेव शुक्रं तद्ब्रह्मा तदेवामृतमुच्यते तस्मिन् लोकः शतः सर्वे तदूनात्यदि कश्चन एतद्वैता
Now I request Chairman of Ahmedabad branch, Sunil Sanghvi sir, to address the gathering.
Thanks, Sunit. Respected today's faculty, Sr.Adv. Saurabh Soparkar sir, Vice Chairman of the branch, C.A. Neerav Agrawal, Secretary, C.A. Sunis Shah, Immediate past Chairperson, C.A. Dr. Anjali Choksi, Immediate past Secretary, C.A. Abhinav Malaviya, Managing Committee Member, Samir Chaudhary, past Chairmen, Senior Members, friends, welcome you. The first session we are starting with the Soparkar sir on the important judicial judgments on the income tax. Thank you very much, sir, for accepting our invitation and sparing your valuable time today. I know it was very much hectic day, but sir has given the consent, and thanks from the Ahmedabad branch, sir. Please have a big round of applause for the sir. After the first session, as you are aware, we'll be having the felicitation and member meet with our honorable newly elected President sir and the Vice President sir. And as a chief guest, the Chief Minister of the Gujarat, Sri Bhupendra Bhai Patel, has given the consent, along with the State Minister of the Gujarat, Sri Jagdish Bhai Vishwakarma. Already we are delayed. Without wasting further time, we are starting now. Thank you very much for coming. Thank you.
Now I request Chairman Sunil Sanghvi sir and Neerav Agrawal, Vice Chairman, to felicitate Saurabh Soparkar sir with the memento. Sir, dais is all yours. You can start with the session.
Mr. Chairman, sir, friends, it's a pleasure to be here this evening to discuss some of the interesting recent judgments. I'll be taking up mainly Supreme Court judgments and a couple of High Court judgments. The judgments are being selected by me not on the premise that they lay down a law by itself, because sometimes law is laid down, but that law is law of 1960s and 70s, which may not be of much relevance today. So I have picked up the judgments keeping in mind its importance, because either the law continues to be, or the set of complications continue to be relevant today, or the principle laid down there has some bearing otherwise on the interpretation of the law. So from that perspective, as I said, I have selected a few judgments. I start with the judgment of Supreme Court in the case of Jindal Steel and Power Limited, 157 Texman.com 207. And the judgment is relevant from the perspective of what is market value of a product. Now, all of us are aware that under section 80IB, or because this is also a relevant principle for transfer pricing proceedings, though 80IB by itself may not be relevant today, some old litigation may be pending, or in relation to transfer pricing, this issue may be relevant. What is the market value? Now, you are aware that if you start an electricity undertaking under section 80 IA 4, profit thereof is fully exempt. Now, if that undertaking transfers electricity to another division of the company, at what rate the transfer should take place? Suppose the rate at which electricity company, electricity supply company, like in our case in Ahmedabad, Torrent Power. Torrent Power, let us say, buys electricity from the market at rupees 3 per unit, but say it sells electricity to the consumers at rupees 7 per unit. When an eligible undertaking transfers power to a non-eligible undertaking, should it charge rupees 3 or can it charge rupees 7? Now, this is a notional charge because it is transferred within the company. Therefore, per se, there is no profit or loss overall from the company's perspective. But because we are computing profit of each undertaking and profit of electricity undertaking is exempt, if it charges rupees 7, obviously it is highly profitable, whereas if it charges rupees 3, the profitability will go down. Revenue always took up a contention that the market value is the market price at which you would sell electricity. And therefore, if that electricity generating company were to sell power to Torrent, it would get rupees 3 per unit. And if it would get rupees 3 per unit from Torrent, by transferring the power to its own another division, it cannot charge rupees 7. And the fact that Torrent charges rupees 7 is irrelevant, or as the department continues to argue that electricity company would charge more because it is generating, distributing, it has to maintain power lines, it has to incur a lot of infrastructure expenses. Therefore, the rate at which the power is bought is not the market rate. The rate at which power is sold is the market rate. This issue arose in the case of Jindal. Obviously, AO took the view against the SSC, CITF will confirm. Tribunal took the view that market price is the price at which power is purchased by another undertaking from the market, namely rupees 7 in my example, and therefore the SSC is entitled to succeed. High Court dismissed the revenues appeal, matter went to High Court. High Court having dismissed the appeal, Revenue carried the matter to Supreme Court. I must also state that large number of High Courts had taken a view in favor of SSE, including Gujarat High Court. But the matter at the Supreme Court level assumes importance because Supreme Court has just not summarily dismissed the matter, it has laid down interesting propositions of law. Firstly, it says an SSE, which is an eligible undertaking, is entitled to transfer goods or services at the market value. Because that is what the law is. But then it says, what is market value? It says market value is the value which an SSE can obtain in open market. What is open market? Open market is a place where buyers and sellers will come voluntarily, will negotiate the price, and the price will be decided on the principle of demand and supply. Therefore, if electricity company is buying electricity from generators at rupees 3, that is not the market. That's a determination by electricity authority, State Electricity Regulatory Commission, under the Electricity Act. That is a controlled transaction. The market rate is the rate at which electricity would be sold in the market. And therefore, when electricity company is selling the power at rupees 7, then in law, the market value is not rupees 3, market value is 7 rupees. The court also took a view that for the purpose of determining what is market rate, you need to take into consideration all relevant factors, and merely because a particular agency is buying goods or services at a particular rate, that itself would not be determinative of factor. Now, there are a couple of aspects which would be relevant post this judgment. One, the judgment is delivered in the era where one could buy or sell power only to an electricity company. But now it is possible to buy and sell electricity on the power exchanges. It may be possible for the revenue to argue that the price at which electricity is purchased and sold on the electricity power exchange may also be a relevant factor. Now that price is likely to be far lower than the price at which power would be otherwise sold by the electricity company, and therefore an SSE may have to point out that those transactions are ordinarily on a day-to-day basis or on a short-term basis, whereas these are long-term power contracts. So an SSE may have to, or as a consultant, we may have to be conscious of how electricity market operates if you want to take advantage of a higher rate to be regarded as the market rate. The second issue, which is not the material issue of this judgment, but nonetheless, the second issue is, in this case, there was a search, and at the time of search, one person was examined on 12th December 2006 and again on 23rd December 2006, and he admitted that the purchases which are recorded are not genuine, transactions are bogus, and this is a case of bogus bills being given. However, on 5th February 2007, within less than 2 months, he filed an affidavit retracting it, and he gave his statement again retracting his earlier statement. The assessing officer did not believe the revised version, and he said that I will go by the admission at the time of search, and made addition of expenses as bogus expenses. Question that arose before the Supreme Court was, ultimately High Court having accepted the case of the SSE as transaction being genuine, question before the Supreme Court was, of the two versions, which is the more believable version. Supreme Court says, assessing officer did not permit an opportunity of cross-examining witnesses who had deposed against the SSC, though SSC had asked for, and therefore those statements are not required to be taken into consideration. In Andaman Timber, Supreme Court has taken a view that if a statement is made behind the back of the SSC and SSC asks for cross-examination but it is denied, then the statement is required to be ignored. Now this is very important on a day-to-day practice. We find in a large number of cases statements are recorded of persons who may be stating against the SSC. Sometimes SSCs are reluctant in asking for cross-examination because they believe that if I ask for cross-examination, he'll again repeat something against me. I would rather therefore not cross-examine him. In my view, that is not the correct approach. Because if you do not cross-examine, then his statement which is made against you is not challenged by you, it will necessarily be read against you. If you cross-examine him, there are two possibilities. Either he may reiterate what you say, or maybe for good, bad, or indifferent reason, he may change his version. In that situation, the fact that you cross-examined him would be of a great advantage to you. But many times assessing officers take a view completely erroneously that it is not necessary to offer witness for cross-examination because he happens to be your employee, because he happens to be your friend, because he happens to be your agent. And if he denies you opportunity of cross-examination, this judgment will come to a great help to you that a statement recorded behind the back of the SSC which is not offered for cross-examination cannot be read against the SSC and therefore will have to be ignored. The second principle which the Supreme Court was looking into was of the two sets of statements, one made in December 2006 and another made in February 2007, whether the second statement should or should not be regarded as a valid statement. And the court said, in this case, the retraction was made within reasonable period. And that is the reason why retraction is required to be appropriately taken into consideration. In other words, sometimes what is happening is statements are recorded. SSC therefore procures statement of retraction, does not file it, believing that if I file it now, AO will again examine that particular person, again the possible truth or untruth will be brought out. Let me put it in the file. I'll file it after 2 years when the assessment is now being finalized, or after 15 months or 12 months when assessment is being finalized. That is a wrong strategy. The evidentiary value or evidentiary worth of retraction statement depends upon the fact how soon you have filed. If you have not filed statement within a short time, then probably it will be regarded as an afterthought and you may not be in a position to make use of that retracted statement with as much force as you would like to do. With this, let me go to the next judgment. It's of Gujarat High Court, but it is of significant importance. We all are aware that if a company allots share at a price below 11 UA price, the revenue takes up a position that is a case of a gift under section 56(2)(10), read with the definition of asset under 56(2)(7). Therefore, let us take a situation, a company has a net worth of per share rupees 20, let's say net worth of rupees 200 per share. It allots shares at rupees 10 to all its shareholders on right basis. Now, obviously, the shares are being allotted at a price which is below the market rate under 11 UA. Whether section 56(2)(10) would be applicable or not. Section 56(2)(10) applies when the shares or when a property is transferred at a rate below the market rate. Question is, when shares are allotted by a company, is it a case of transfer of an asset or transfer of an asset at a price below the market rate? In the case of Jigar Jayantilal Shah, 154 Texman.com, 568 Gujarat, the company came out with the right issue. Right was obviously offered to every shareholder in identical manner in proportion to its original holding. The SSE acquired, or SSE went for his own shares. SSE additionally acquired shares which were offered to his relatives, because the relatives transferred or renounced interest to him. SSE also acquired shares which were offered to other shareholders, which other shareholders did not take. Revenue therefore argued that to the extent SSE got the shares at a price below the market rate, SSE has benefited, including his own share. Matter was carried to CIT appeal. CIT appeal took a view that insofar as his own holding is concerned, let's say he was holding 50% share, then to the extent of his own 50% entitlement to right, because right is being offered to everyone at the same rate, there is no benefit, 56(2)(7) would not be applied. But to the extent the shares are given to his relative and relative has transferred, or shares are offered to the third party and third parties have transferred, there is invocation of 56(2)(7) is validly made. Matter was carried to tribunal. The tribunal held that so far as SSE and his relatives are concerned, 56(2)(7) would not be invoked because it is own share or relative share. Third party, it will be invoked. Matter was carried to High Court. The argument of the SSE was that, sir, section 56(2)(7) has no application at all. Why? Section 56(2)(7) applies in case of a transfer of a property, immovable or movable, at a price below the market rate. Therefore, there has to be a property, and B, transfer of the property, and C, at a price below the market rate. Now, when a company allots share, where is the property? I apply for the share. Company allots share to me. When the company allots share to me, company is not transferring an asset. In fact, as an accountant, all of us know shares or share capital is appearing on the liability side of the company, because company is acknowledging amount paid by me and therefore is giving me share certificate. Shares are not transferred at that stage. Shares are, quote unquote, created at that stage. Thereafter, if the shareholder were to transfer the share, it will be a case of a transfer of shares. That distinction was drawn by Supreme Court in a slightly different context in the case of Khode Distillery. However, Bombay Tribunal in Sudhir Memon did not agree. Ahmedabad Tribunal, therefore, in the case of Jigar Jayantilal, did not agree with that view. Gujarat High Court has taken a view that when the shares are allotted at the first instance, this is not a case of transfer of any movable property. And if it is not a case of transfer of any movable property, question of invoking section 56(2)(7) or now 56(2)(10) itself would not apply. Now, the section is still on the statute book. The High Court dealt with the case of a right issue. But take a situation, it is not a right issue at all. There is ABC Private Limited, of which shares are worth rupees 100 per share. A new investor is coming, X or Y, and the company chooses to allot shares to him at rupees 60 per share. It's a first allotment, but not to an existing shareholder. Even in such a situation, because there is no transfer of an asset, because there is no asset, 56(2)(7)(b or 56(2)(10) would have no application whatsoever. This, therefore, is a judgment which could be of a great help to all those companies which are in the process of issuing shares, because company is always worried that if I issue share at a price below the market rate, shareholder may have to pay tax under 56(2)(10). And if I issue shares at a price above the market rate, I may have to pay tax under section 56(2)(7) capital 7B, it's premium. Therefore, company is always worried about finding out the right price. Now, this judgment makes it clear that this transaction would not be subjected to tax. A question may arise, however, whether in such a situation, company would be required to pay tax otherwise. This 56 is in the hand of a shareholder. So far as section 50CA is concerned, to my mind, even that section will have no application. Under the circumstances, I would take a view that this judgment is of a great help in the matter of allotment of fresh shares by a company. I now go to the third judgment, which is under the Gift Tax Act, but it is again has some bearing, and that is why I am discussing it. It's a case of BPL Limited, 143 Taxman.com, page 22. Now, under the Gift Tax Act, those of us who have been in this profession for quite some time, we would recollect there was a section 4(1), deemed gift, under which if an asset is transferred by a person to another at a price below the market rate, the difference was exigible to tax as a deemed gift, something akin to section 56(2)(10), but 56(2)(10) is in the hands of recipient, gift tax was in the hands of a donor. A shareholder transferred shares of a listed company at a price below what was the market quotation. Under the circumstances, the revenue took up a position that if market quotation was less, let us say rupees 100, and you have transferred shares at rupees 70, the difference of rupees 30 per share is a deemed gift on which you are liable to pay gift tax. The SSA argued that, sir, these shares were issued to me under promoter's quota, and by virtue of the restriction imposed by SEBI, there is a lock-in period in relation to these shares, and therefore I am not entitled to transfer these shares on the floor of stock exchange. And because I am not entitled to transfer shares on the floor of stock exchange, the shares have no market. And if the shares have no market, you cannot take 100 rupees, which is the quotation on the market, as the market value for the purpose of finding out the difference between the sale price and the so-called market price to tax me as a deemed gift. The question that arose before the Supreme Court was, SSA having lost before the High Court, whether while considering market value, the restriction on the tradability of the share will have to be taken into consideration or not. Now please see, this is otherwise a share of a listed company. The quotation was available on the floor of stock exchange. Therefore, there was otherwise no dispute about what is the right price of the share. The argument only was, maybe that is the right price of the share, but that is not the right price of my share. Because my share cannot be sold on the floor of stock exchange, and therefore that price is irrelevant. The Supreme Court, accepting the contention of the SSA, took a view that when you're looking at the market price, you need to find out market price in relation to the asset which is sought to be transferred. Asset sought to be transferred in the present case is the shares which were subject to the restriction about free transferability. These shares had no market, and because these shares had no market, and because they could not be traded on the floor of stock exchange, you will not be entitled to go by the valuation or by the value of the share and the quotation of the stock exchange for the purpose of determining as to whether or not there is a deemed gift. Now, why am I discussing this? Even now we have 56 to 10, where if you receive a property at a price below the market rate, you are liable to pay tax. Now, if I receive, let us say, the jantri rate of a property is rupees 5,000 per square yard, but the vendor sells to me for rupees 3,000 per square yard, because he is able to establish there are litigations, there is dispute as to title, there is some encroachment, there is a possibility of the land being acquired, or it's an agricultural land and the possibility of land being converted to non-agriculture is very remote, whatever. If I'm able to establish that whereas the jantri rate in that area is rupees 5,000 per square yard, considering all or some of these problems, I would not be entitled to get the jantri price, and the market price is only rupees 3,000, I would believe the assessing officer, when you are raising dispute of valuation, shall have to take into consideration all these factors before he determines what is the market rate. Market rate would not be decided theoretically on the premise what is the market rate of the area, of the lands in that area. We are not really concerned with the market rate of the lands in that area. We are concerned with market rate of the land which is being transferred. So if we are able to establish that there is a dispute as regards the market rate of the land which is being transferred, the assessee would be entitled to take a view that I would not be liable to pay tax on the differential value, because as a matter of fact, there is no gain that I have received. That takes me to an interesting but again a material judgment. That's a case of Siemens Nixdorf Information System 114, Texman.com 531, confirmed by or SLP dismissed by Supreme Court 453 ITR 741. Issue is one of capital loss versus business loss versus what is an asset. SSE had given 90 lakh euro to its subsidiary. Subsidiary was into financial difficulty. SSE realized that it is possibly difficult for it to realize back the amount of loan. So instead of writing off the amount of loan, which probably could have had some dispute of a greater nature, SSA must have been advised correctly that you transfer this loan, let's say 90 lakh euro, hypothetically is worth rupees 70 crore. So you have given loan of rupees 70 crore, you are not likely to realize the loan back. So you transfer this loan to third party or to associate company for rupees 5 crore. SSE therefore, again in the hypothetical example, transferred loan of rupees 70 crore at rupees 5 crore and claimed the differential amount as a loss on which it claimed a capital loss. The SSE claimed that this is a capital asset. If it's a capital asset, I have lost capital asset. Cost of the asset was rupees 70 crore. I have realized rupees 5 crore. On 65 crore, I have suffered a capital loss which I must get as a deduction. Minor Baba Bhai, 128 ITR, page 1, took a view that even a debt can be a capital asset. In that case, it was a fixed deposit which was lost. It was held to be a capital asset. So debt could be a capital asset. This is a case of transfer of a debt / capital asset at a loss. Loss would be allowed. High Court confirmed the view. Matter was carried to Supreme Court. As I said, Supreme Court again confirmed the view. Couple of fallout issues. One, if I have given a business debt, if there is sale of goods or services and I am not realizing it, it will not fall in this situation at all because it will be a case of a bad debt. But if it is not or if it is over and above business days or bed date, there are two further situations which can arise. One, I have given loans and advances, which I am not going to realize. Two, I might have invested into the capital of that subsidiary, which is now worthless. So I might have to write off the investments. And three, I might have stood as a guarantor for my subsidiary, which is now into financial difficulty. And because of the fact that it is in financial difficulty, the lender is calling upon me to discharge the liability. And if I discharge the liability, whether the amount so paid by me would be allowed to me as a loss. Now, so far as loans and advances are concerned, we have a lead judgment of Gujarat High Court in the case of Abdul Razak, 136 ITR 825. So also Bombay High Court, Colgate Palmolive, 370 ITR 728, where a view is taken that loan given, which is not likely to be realized, can be written off, and the amount of loss can be claimed as a business loss. Issue becomes a little tricky in the matter of investment. Whether when investment is written off, the amount would be allowed to you as a business loss, capital loss, or would not be allowed at all. Now, interestingly, courts have taken a view that if you have made investment for strategic purposes, there is a backward integration, there is a forward integration. You are, for example, as in case of Colgate, you are manufacturer of toothbrushes and toothbrushes and the toothpaste. You have set up subsidiary for the purpose of supplying raw material for toothbrushes. Or if you are manufacturing textile product, you invest into a subsidiary for the purpose of getting the textile products processed, other end, or for the purpose of spinning of the yarn. If there is a backward integration, forward integration, there is interconnection, courts have taken a view that in such a situation, even the writing of the investment is to be allowed as a business loss. Lead judgment again is Colgate, 370 ITR 728, and Vaibhav Global, Rajasthan High Court, 138 Taxman.com 506. A question would arise here, but then you are not receiving any consideration. You are just writing it off. Even if you do not receive consideration, Gujarat High Court has taken away in the case of Jaikrishna Harivalabh Das, that is a matter of no significance. You will still get the amount as a capital loss. Even in the matter of guarantees, if you are required to discharge your liability as guarantor, courts have taken a view, including Supreme Court, the amount would be allowable to you as a business loss. Therefore, one has to be extra careful in ensuring that such claims of losses, both capital losses and business losses, do not fail because the necessary evidence is not placed on record. I now go to a judgment which is again slightly relevant because of the concept of agricultural land. That is M.R. Anandram, 450 ITR 94, Kerala, SLP dismissed, 154 Taxman.com 143. Now, all of us are aware that agricultural land, if it is beyond 8 kilometers of municipal area, and if it is used for agricultural operation, is not a capital asset. Transfer thereof would not give rise to capital gain. Question that is arising at times is that agriculturist wants to sell the land, buyer wants to thereafter put it to non-agricultural use, maybe industrial use, commercial use, whatever. Buyer insists that you convert the land from agriculture to non-agriculture and thereafter hand over land to me. Therefore, at the instance of the buyer, agriculturists will apply for and get the land transferred from agriculture to non-agriculture. And then the land is sold. Question that arises is whether in such a situation when the land is converted from agriculture to non-agriculture, would it lose the status of agricultural land and would the SSA be exposed to tax because it is sale of a capital asset? Or can SSA still argue that so far as I am concerned, it is still an agricultural land? Now this issue is interestingly discussed in this Kerala High Court judgment. SSC was having agricultural land. It was beyond 8 kilometers from the municipal area. It was sold in the year 2009. Capital gain was not offered for tax. On the ground, it is an agricultural land. Revenue pointed out that, sir, when you sold it, it is non-agricultural land. SSC pointed out, yes, I converted into non-agricultural land, but it was done at the instance of the buyer. But what is more important, the land continued to be utilized for agricultural operation, including till and including the date of sale. So when I sold it, though in the revenue record it may be regarded as non-agricultural land, there is an adequate proof to show agricultural operations were carried out. Photographs were placed on the record to establish that, as a matter of fact, land was being used for agricultural purposes. The court took a view that nomenclature in the revenue record is not material. What is material is whether the land on the relevant date was being used for agricultural purpose or not. And in as much as SSC had established that on the date of transfer, land was being used for agricultural purposes, the court took a view that SSC is entitled to exemption from paying capital gain tax because it is not a capital asset. Now, in reality, what is the problem and how do we deal with it? We come across situations where buyers insist you must convert into non-agriculture. And for commercial reasons, the agriculturist vendors are not able to say no. My advice would be, first take letter from the buyer that please get it converted into agriculture, a non-agricultural land. 2, all cost of conversion, ensure that buyer directly pays. 3, if possible, have a recital in the conveyance deed that land was converted into non-agriculture at the instance of the buyer. 4, most importantly, till the land is actually sold, please ensure that agricultural operations are carried out, for which necessary proofs are retained. Nowadays, along with the conveyance deed, you have to attach photograph of the property on the date of transfer. Please ensure that the photograph captures agricultural produce and or agricultural operations. If you keep enough proof to establish that agricultural operations are carried out, then according to this judgment, even though land may be in the revenue record termed as not an agricultural land, you may still be entitled to argue that it is an agricultural land and therefore not liable to be taxed as capital asset. The second issue that is established by this judgment is the land was within 8 kilometers of the local area development authority, like our AUDA. But it was beyond 8 kilometers of the nearest Gram Panchayat or Taluka Panchayat. Question was whether for the purpose of computing 8 kilometers, you go by the periphery of the nearest Gram Panchayat or Taluka Panchayat, or do you go by the periphery of area development authority. This becomes material because nowadays AUDA has expanded its limits. Large number of villages are covered. If you go by the periphery of AUDA, huge area would be, for example, taken into consideration. But if you go by periphery of small villages, which may be part of AUDA, large part of land may not be covered. The judgment clarifies that 8 kilometers has to be from the local limits of a village and not from area development authority. And therefore, you will also ensure that while computing 8 kilometer distance, you take into consideration the right municipality, Gram Panchayat or Taluka Panchayat rather than area development authority. Let me go to now, in last 10 minutes, two judgments, one small and another little complex. Let me deal with a short judgment. First is the judgment in the case of Royal Western India Turf Club 453 ITR 460, where Supreme Court dismisses SLP from Bombay High Court judgment. Question was an amount of rupees 7.5 crore was received from the members towards admission fees. Whether the amount received by a club from the members as and by of admission fees would be taxable as income or not was an issue. Bombay High Court took a view, it is not an income. Supreme Court confirmed it. So we have a concept of capital receipt, and the capital receipt would not be exigible to tax is an issue which is material over here. But the last judgment to which I would be spending a few minutes is the judgment of Supreme Court in the case of Bharti Hexacom 458 ITR 593. This is an encyclopedia of the judgments and exposition of law in the matter of capital versus revenue expenditure. Whoever wants to examine the concept of capital versus revenue expenditure and whoever wants to examine all judgments on the point must go through this one judgment, because it takes into consideration almost 100 judgments and takes a particular view. What are the facts, what is the view, and whether or not it will have a problem. Bharti Hexacom it was a telecommunication company, Bharti Telecom, and it had to pay license fee to the government for the purpose of operating the telecommunication circles. Now the license fee was being paid partly on one-time basis and partly as percentage of the gross revenue on a year-to-year basis. It was provisional. Ultimately, government said the fees to be paid would be 15% of the revenue. Therefore, let us say lump sum fee of rupees 10 crore, hypothetically. And if you are in year one, your turnover is rupees 100 crore, pay rupees 15 crore. If in year two, it is rupees 200 crore, pay rupees 30 crore, so on and so forth. The controversy was as to whether the license fee so paid is a capital expenditure or revenue expenditure. Delhi High Court took the view that license fee so paid insofar as one-time fee is concerned is a capital expenditure, but so far as yearly payment as a percentage of turnover is concerned, it is to be taken as a revenue expenditure. It was this issue which became material for consideration before the Supreme Court. Please mark facts. Yearly license fee payable as a percentage of the revenue. On first principles, all of us would assume that if it is a percentage of revenue, it has to be taken as a revenue expenditure. Supreme Court holds to the contrary. Supreme Court examines all earlier laws on the point, looks at Alembic judgment 177 ITR 377, Empire Jute 124 ITR page 1, Devidas Vithaldas 184 ITR 277. Ultimately, it brings out various principles. It says, unless there is an enduring benefit, expenditure is revenue. Fixed versus circulating capital, fixed is capital, circulating is revenue. New versus existing, new is capital, existing is revenue. But having said this, Supreme Court says, these are the factors which ultimately guide the courts. Periodicity of payment, one time or periodical. Object of the expenditure, whether it is for the purpose of acquiring something or whether it is for the purpose of maintaining something. Identifiable asset, have you got an asset or have you got some benefit? Commercial expediency. After all these principles are laid down, court says, but then there are irrelevant considerations. One, whether it is lump sum or periodical is irrelevant. You may be liable to pay rupees 1 crore at one go, or you may be liable to pay rupees 1 crore over a period of 10 years in 10 installments, each of rupees 10 lakh. That's irrelevant. Magnitude of payment, whether it's a small payment or big payment, again is not material. Most important, entries in the books of accounts are again immaterial. Supreme Court had said in the case of Kedarnath Jute, repeatedly saying 227 ITR 172 Tuticorin. Again now it is said entries in the books of account is irrelevant. And finally it says why the payment is being made is ultimately material. On the facts of the case, Supreme Court holds, here SSC acquired right to do business. And if it acquired right to do business, it is in the field of a capital expenditure. Thus far, I have no problem. But then Supreme Court says, and here I have a problem, if the SSC would not make payment on a year-to-year basis, then its business would not be permitted thereafter again on a year-to-year basis. So this payment is required to be made on a year-to-year basis for the purpose of being able to do the business. Now this would be true for every revenue expenditure also. I need to pay rent on a year-to-year basis. I need to pay, let's say, fees to the trade association on a year-to-year basis. I need to pay charges on a year-to-year basis. Now, merely because I need to make payment on a year-to-year basis for the purpose of being able to continue to run the business, would it mean it's a capital expenditure? But Supreme Court says that is also a material factor which is required to be taken into consideration. The Supreme Court says if an SS is making payment in lump sum, you may not be able to split into two parts. One is capital, another is revenue. Nomenclature is not material. What is material is the substance. The fallout of this judgment is the settled principle of law that we had so far, namely an expenditure incurred post commencement of business for the purpose of being able to continue to run the business is always revenue in nature, is now shaken. This is a judgment of two learned judges. It has considered large number of judgments of a larger bench, but having considered all of them, the court has taken a view that even an expenditure which is required to be incurred for the purpose of being able to run the business would also be in the nature of a capital expenditure. And therefore now one will have to be extra careful in processing a particular kind of expenditure, whether it will be regarded as capital or whether it will be regarded as revenue. Enduring benefit, fixed capital versus circulating capital, the books of account entries, treatment in the hands of payee, all this would be irrelevant. Why the payment is being made, what is it that you are going to get out of the payment, that is going to be the only determinative factor, and therefore one will have to revisit the claims of capital versus revenue expenditure made by the SSC from time to time. With this, my time is up. I was here and I was supposed to be here till 6:30. So thank you very much for very patiently listening to me. Thank you.
Respected dignitaries, esteemed guests, and beloved members, it is with immense gratitude that I stand before you today to extend a heartfelt thanks to the learned Sr.Adv. Saurabh Soparkar, sir, for his profound insights on the technical subjects of recent judicial judgments. Sir, your depth in the knowledge and your capability to explain the complex legal matter in a lucid way has surely left an indelible mark on our minds. Sir, I, on behalf of all the members present and on behalf of Ahmedabad branch, would like to extend a heartiest vote of thanks for your valuable time you are sparing with us. Respected members, as we transit into the second segment of our new phase, where we will be privileged to felicitate Honorable President and Vice President, sir, I'll request all the members to kindly be seated. With a quick change of dais, we are proceeding with the next segment. Thank you all.